Namaste and welcome to Tridevi Chamunda Mandir in Denver, Colorado. This is Yamajit, and thank you so very much for joining me for our Tuesday Puja and Satsang. This is part 9 of our series, Kali for Everyone. And really, in many ways, today's installment is really part 2 of last week's presentation, which was on the Mahavidya goddess, the great wisdom goddess, Chinnamasta. And you might remember Chinnamasta from last week, she who severs her own head. And the goddess that we're going to be talking about this week is really a form of Chinnamasta. And that is the female Buddha, Vajra Yogini. Before we begin, I'd like to say namaste to Bryce. Thank you for joining me this evening. And anybody else who happens to be tuning in, please feel free to say hello using the chat function on the bottom of your screen. I do have one other announcement. We will not be having our usual Friday Puja and Satsang this week. Tomorrow begins 3-day process of getting this house repiped, and so the temple space just is just not going to be available on Friday, but we'll resume our regular programming next week on next Tuesday, part 10 of our series Kali for Everyone. And we're going to feature one of my favorites, Sveta Kali, also known as the White Kali of the Kathmandu Valley of Nepal. So again, welcome and namaste. I'd like to say namaste to Kelly. Thank you so very much for joining me. So during this last week, one of our viewers sent a message via my channel asking the question, when it comes to Chinnamasta, is she Hindu or is she Vajrayana? And Vajrayana is the form of Buddhism which is practiced in Tibet and also in much of Nepal. Very powerful question. And the answer is really she is both. And that's one of the things that we'll discuss during today's presentation. So when we talk about Chinnamasta, and this is something I mentioned last week, one of her names is Vajra Vairochini, or she who is effulgent with the thunderbolt. The title Vajra is one of Chinnamasta's many names. And by the way, this is the Tibetan ritual object, which is known as the Vajra and represents the thunderbolt. Vajra also translates to diamond. So it's this unstoppable force, this cutting through energy, this energy that cuts through anything like a diamond cuts through anything. So Vajra Yogini is pictured in the form of a Dakini or sky dancer, and she is known as the feminine Buddha. And Vajra Yogini is based on the Kali Chamunda archetype. If we take a look at this Tanka painting, this is actually the first Tanka I ever owned. And I purchased this in 2006. It was the spring of 2006. When I visited the city of Dharamshala in the lower Himalayas in northern India, where this is the site of the Tibetan government in exile. This is where the Dalai Lama is headquartered. And you notice she looks very much like Ma Kali. She's naked. She wears a necklace of skulls, which represents the 50 letters of the Sanskrit alphabet, so she's got a strong association with the power of the word and also the power of mantra. Each of the names of the Sanskrit letters is a mantra unto itself. She stands on either a corpse or on two figures in a traditional Vajra Yogini, the wrathful form of Shiva, Lord Bhairab, who I've mentioned before, and a goddess called Kalaratri, the divine night of darkness. And I'd like to say a little bit more about her symbolism. So she is shown under an archway of fire, and fire is a transformative element. So this is both enlightened consciousness and also our ability to transform and our ability to create transformation. She is holding a curved knife called a kartika or a driguk. And the kartika is modeled after the type of knife that would be used in a sky burial, as a custom that is still practiced in Tibet today. The hook on the driguk represents the divine's ability to hook our attention. And you'll notice that the Vajra also crowns this object. And the significance of the driguk or kartika is that it represents the divine's ability to cut away our ego attachments, just as this knife might be used to cut apart a body so that it can then be given, offered really to scavengers. She holds a kapala filled with blood, and this represents really the transformation of consciousness. And on our altar, I have this small kapala from Southeast Asia, which I have a food offering in. And the Southeast Asian style of kapala is a circle cut from the dome of the forehead. And then in the crook of her left arm, she is holding a staff, which is called a katvanga. And here's an example of a small katvanga. And the katvanga is crowned with three heads, one that is freshly cut, a second in a state of decomposition, and the third, which is complete, just a skull, completely devoid of flesh. And this represents, on one hand, the mastery over change, not fearing change, not trying to avoid change, but accepting it and taking those opportunities that that change in our lives offers us. And additionally, the Katvanga represents Vajra Yogini's male consort. And that male consort that she's very often shown with, we can see in this yak bone carving, is a male figure called Chakra Samvara. And Chakra Samvara is based on the Shiva archetype, just as Vajra Yogini is based on the Chamunda/Kali archetype. The two ribbons that we see coming off of the Katvanga, those two represent the right and left main energy channels. The Ida on the left, the Pingala on the right, the lunar and solar or feminine and masculine channels, and then the staff itself also represents the Sushumna Nadi, the passageway through which Kundalini travels upwards in an act of meditation. And then she wears a crown of 5 skulls, and that crown of 5 skulls signifies um, the transformation of our inner poisons into inner wisdoms. She is seen standing upon a solar disk, which is then surrounded by a lotus flower. The lotus being significant with purity and cleansing. Think of the lotus flower itself growing upwards toward the sun, toward the light, from the muck and the mud at the bottom of a pool. And so this is our own consciousness moving upwards to the light of divinity. And so there's some of the key symbolism behind Vajra Yogini. Sometimes we see her with very long, disheveled hair, just like that of Ma Kali. And her hair being unbound represents feminine Shakti energy, which is not bound by anything. And then her hair going in all directions represents the divine's interconnection with everything in the universe. So Vajra Yogini can be seen in a number of forms. During last Friday's Cho practice, we talked about how the person who formulated Cho meditation 1,000 years ago, Machig Lobdran, is seen as an incarnation of Vajra Yogini. And she is depicted this day as a white dakini dancing with a damaru drum and a bell. Then we have Vajra Yogini herself, usually red in color, red being the color of Shakti energy. And she is very fierce, very wrathful in her own nature, but there's a slightly more wrathful form of Vajra Yogini, and that is the red dakini known as Vajra Vadahi. And something we really can't see very well in this painting is Vadahi is the female form of the god Varaha, who is Lord Vishnu's boar incarnation. And so she's a form of the Shakti of Varaha, and she very often is shown with a little wild boar's head in her crown. And that little wild pig is squealing, and it's warning all of the dualistic side of our nature that the divine is coming to cut away that way of thinking around duality, that separating of us versus them. And I'd like to say namaste to Chuck Peck as well. Thank you for joining us this evening. And then there's a very wrathful, even more wrathful form of Vajra Yogini, the black or dark blue form of Vajra Yogini, Tramanagmo, and she is the key feminine figure in most of the Cho meditation practices. We worked with Tramanagmo last week on Friday night. Another of her titles is Krodh Kali, and Krodh Kali means the wrathful or the fierce Kali, form of Kali. And so we can really see that Kali archetype in Tramanagmo. And so we have both Vajravadahi and Tramanagmo represented on our altar. Vajravadahi in this little yak bone carving. And then another bone carving representing Tramanagmo. And this is probably the goddess figure I work with the most in my personal practice. She was a lucky eBay find, and she is carved on a piece of thigh bone. And just a very powerful figure to be working with. The string that I've got tied around on the bottom side here was a sacred thread like the one on my wrist that was tied around my wrist in this would have been in 2008 when I visited the Chausati Yogini temple in Hirapur in the state of Orissa. And this was given to me as part of a puja that the temple priest performed with me. And then her stand is just a little section of yak bone that works very nicely to stand this little figure up. And then we have a brass Vajra Yogini statue on our altar. It looks like there's a couple of questions here. And Chuck, I'd like to thank you for sharing your experiences with me. And I'd love to see that Tromanagmo tanka that you have. And yeah, I have Kali's three eyes, the three eyes from the Murti, the devotional image at the Kaligat temple in Calcutta, on my chest. And her three eyes are also my wedding band tattoo. Both my wife Jamie and I have a tattoo on our ring fingers. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing that information with us. There's one other figure I'd like to share with you before we begin our puja. And you may have seen images like this before. So the Kartika or Driguk. Just need to move the microphone a little bit so I can show this to you. There we go. Is very often worn as a pendant by devotees of one or more of the forms of Vajra Yogini. This is one that I'm wearing myself right now. It happens to be molded from iron from a meteorite. Let's see if I can get a better view of that on our camera. And then strung with it are a couple of carved Bodhi seeds, a piece of Tibetan coral and turquoise. And then there are two skull beads. And these skulls represent Chittapati. And Chittapati, I'm going to bring this other yak bone carving up and try to focus in on it, are two skeletons dancing very happily upon a cremation ground. And they are none other than Vajra Yogini and her male consort, Chakra Samvada, only they're now completely stripped of flesh. And so they represent the ultimate Cha practitioners. They have totally shed away all of their attachment, and now they are attachments, and they are now dancing happily upon the Shmashana or cremation ground. So many forms of Vajra Yogini. Vajra Yogini's mandala is a six-pointed star, and these represent both the blending of masculine and feminine energies, and we see that same sun disk surrounded by the lotus. And then this Tibetan character in the center here is the seed syllable Vam, V-A-M, and this is the mantra that we're going to use in tonight's puja. So we're just going to be chanting her seed syllable Vam. Interestingly enough, Let's see what else I want to mention about Vam. Yeah, Vam is also the seed syllable for the second chakra as well. Oh, and thank you for mentioning about the bone ornaments that you wear too, and wearing bone is very traditional if you're working with both Kali as well as Vajra Yogini. So, as I mentioned before in our practices with this series, I would highly encourage you to have a puja set of your own and to do the puja along with us. Um, so, some kind of water pot or an akman and spoon and some kind of candle holder or lamp. This is a skunda from Nepal that both of those objects are merged together in. A holder for incense, bottle of your favorite fragrance, some kind of food offering, and flowers. A bell can also be useful as well. So let's begin our puja. So I invite you to sit very comfortably. Just find a comfortable seated position where your back can be straight. Maybe roll the shoulders back to open the chest so your breath can be full. And just look upon our screen with a relaxed gaze. And if you find your gaze moving toward one of our devotional objects, and I think I'm going to go ahead and pan the camera up to include our tanka, and I'll just bring the objects up to it. And so if you find your gaze being drawn to one of these figures, feel free to make that your meditational focus during our puja this evening. So while sitting comfortably, gazing upon the altar, I invite you to begin by breathing slowly and deeply. Taking a moment for grounding, for centering, for preparing for our rite of devotion. Letting go of the cares and the concerns of the day, the cares and concerns of the past and those of the future. Just let your consciousness be as much as possible on this present moment. And focusing your breath and attention on your heart center. Getting in touch with that divine presence within yourself. And know that an important part of these meditations is really to enhance our awareness of that divine presence within, so that she can guide us and teach us and heal us and give us her wisdom. And always, I invite you to think of some aspect in your life that is ready for healing or transformation, or somewhere in your life where you could use some insights from the divine. And take a moment to think about that issue, perhaps silently to yourself, expressing an intention, a personal sankalpa for tonight's practice. And just acknowledge that in taking part in tonight's puja, you're taking a strong step toward that healing, toward that resolution, toward receiving that knowledge that you're in need of. And then slowly bringing the palms of your hands together at your heart center. I invite you to join me in chanting the syllable Vam 3 times out loud. So take a nice deep breath. Inhale again. One more inhale. And then I invite you to join me in the chanting of Vam as we make our offerings. Vam. Taking a spoon of water and cleansing your hands. Vam. And with your right hand, anointing your third eye and your heart center. Vam. Taking a spoon of water, cleansing your altar. Vam. Taking some perfume on your middle or ring finger. Vam. And anointing any devotional figures on your altar. That can include the individuals that she might be standing on. Vam. And you can place some remaining oil on your third eye. Vam. Picking up your food offering, circling it 3 times, and placing it before the figures. Vam. Lighting your flame and offering it. Vam. Vam. Circling it 3 times. Vam. Lighting your incense. Vam. Placing the incense holder on your altar. Vam. Taking up some flowers. Vam. Vam. And offering the flowers. Vam. Vam. palms of your hands together and bowing. Vam. And then taking up your mala and preparing to chant the mantra. We're going to do 54 repetitions tonight. You're welcome to join me in chanting the mantra out loud. You can also just meditate in silence. This can also be an open-eyed or closed-eyed meditation. And you can also, you're welcome to chant the mantra silently as well. Vam. 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 Breathe deeply. Meditating in a place of stillness and silence. Making the mantra and its power part of your being. And feel it working toward the fulfillment of your intentions. Offering your mala. Offering another flower if you happen to have one. Bringing the palms of your hands together at your heart center. And giving reverence to Ma Vajra Yogini in all of her forms, especially a particular form that you may find yourself drawn towards. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Taking a moment to give gratitude to yourself for taking part in this practice. Slowly opening your eyes. They were closed. Namaste. Blessings always. Thank you so very much for joining me this evening. And Jai Ma. Jai Ma. Jai Ma Vajra Yogini. Jai Ma. So I hope you enjoyed this evening's practice. Thank you very much. I'd like to say thank you to Kelly, to Bryce, and to Chuck for joining me, and anyone else who is joining me live, and also anybody who will be watching the recording of this broadcast in the future. Thank you so very much for joining me. As always, if you have questions or you'd like to share something about your experience, please feel free to message me at my channel, or you can always email me at omcdevi, AUMCDEVI @gmail.com. And I look forward to you joining me next Tuesday for part 10 of our series, Kali for Everyone. And we'll be honoring Svetakali, the White Kali. So until then, once again, namaste and thank you, and have a wonderful few days. Have a wonderful week ahead. Jai Mata Di, Jai Mata Di, Jai Mata Di. And thank you again. Jai Ma.